I have a question from a gentleman that I decided not to play because I don't think he wants his played here in this arena. But his question was, he's basically taking 3 different blood pressure medicines, 3, and none of them are controlling his blood pressure, but they are impacting his ability to get an erection. So his question to me then is, what can be done? So the first thing, he's taking something called amlodipine. Amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker. So what they've done is they've taken what magnesium does naturally. Magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker, and they've created one in the lab to control blood pressure. The problem with amlodipine is that it wreaks havoc on your erections. It just does. So I also find that when you're on 3 blood pressure medicines and none of them are controlling your blood pressure, usually these patients have a tendency to be sugar sensitive, not necessarily salt sensitive. So we've got to decrease the amount of sugar that you're taking in on a daily basis. So going back to looking at your labels, your salad dressing, everything, figuring out where the hidden fake sugars are in your system and removing them. Then what you want to do is, since you've been suffering for years and you've been on blood pressure medication for years and your erections have been suffering for years, now you've got to think about getting the tissue back to where it needs to be. So you need to get a good pump. Now, we're no longer talking about the tidal wave here because of technical difficulties and so on and so forth, that I'm not marketing it anymore. So any great pump off of Amazon, I'm a huge fan of the VacuRect. The VacuRect is a nice compact device that it's compact, it's easy to use. The great thing about the tough part about the VacuRect is if you are thick and have a fat penis, then the VacuRect might be a little too tight for you. But any pump will do. So if you've been suffering and having ED for a while now, you've got to reperfuse the tissue. You want to reverse the shrinkage. So what you want to do is get a good quality pump to do that. So you want to work on your blood pressure by talking to your doctor about, can we add some magnesium here? Can we add something that's going to improve nitric oxide production? Because particularly in African Americans, what we know is that the enzyme, the nitric oxide synthase, the NOS that we need to make nitric oxide, in Black folks, it actually is less prevalent. We have trouble genetically with nitric oxide synthase, and so this is one of the big theories as to why we suffer so much with hypertension. Because what hypertension really is that the blood vessels aren't expanding and contracting in a way that we want them to, and because they're not expanding and contracting in a way that we want them to, they're not relaxing. And what we need to relax is nitric oxide. And so this enzyme that a lot of us have a deficiency with means that we don't make nitric oxide at the same levels as some other groups of people. And when that's the case, the blood vessel's not expanding and the blood pressure stays high. So improve your nitric oxide levels. Ask them if the supplement that I recommend, that's a nitrate-rich supplement, would be okay for you to use. So here's the thing. Get your nitric oxide levels up. Get your magnesium up. Consider supplementing about 600 milligrams of magnesium each day. Magnesium glycinate, you take it at night, it's going to make you a little sleepy. But what you'll start to see gradually are these things improving. Making sure that your vitamin D levels are up to optimized. We want vitamin D to be anywhere between 60 and 70. But as you're taking vitamin D3, you also have to be cognizant that you need a little bit of K2 in there so that we're not calcifying the arteries even more. There are so much data that one of the ways to undo calcified arteries has to do with magnesium. So get that magnesium up. Now, one thing that I want you also to make sure that you're doing, make sure that you're not getting any extra calcium from anywhere. You're not getting it from Tums. You're not getting it from your multivitamin, because calcium can, in fact, calcify the arteries. I would prefer for you to remove calcium from your supplements and take calcium-free supplements. Which also brings me to another question that I have from a gentleman who's been taking a supplement that has magnesium. magnesium and calcium. And his question is, he's taking the magnesium and the calcium and the vitamin D. Is it okay to leave the calcium in if he's taking these other two things? So let's pull up the question.
Hi, DrRachael. My name's Steve. Just concerned about, I'm taking erectile D3 tablets, 2 in the morning, milligrams to 200 IUs. And I'm just concerned about maybe blocking my arteries from the calcium that's in it. But I also take 375 milligrams a day of magnesium. So I'm just concerned whether I'm taking not enough magnesium or whether this will be okay with those erectile D3 tablets, because I don't really want to clog my arteries up from the calcium that goes into your arteries.
Great question. So here's what I want you to do. When those pills run out, I want you to get the kind without calcium. Nobody should be supplementing calcium every day. It's a farce. The data is really clear. No one should be getting extra calcium. We get enough from our food, well, no one that doesn't have a specific disorder that requires calcium should be taking calcium right now. So that would be my first thing, would be let those supplements run out and then get some without the calcium. I also think that when you're taking magnesium and vitamin D3, that you actually need some K2 in there to kind of help with the arteries. You've been taking calcium for a really long time, and now what I want you to do is we got to undo some of the stuff with the calcium, because the calcium probably, calcium will get into the arteries and make them stiffer. So my best advice would be to get a supplement that doesn't have calcium in it, to add K2 to the vitamin D3 regimen that you're doing. And I also recommend that when we know we have some blood vessel disease on board and we're dealing with, basic health issues, that the magnesium that we take is closer to 600 milligrams, not 375 milligrams. But also keep in mind, you can get magnesium from your diet. Pumpkin seeds have a huge amount of magnesium in it. So think about pumpkin seeds, think about spinach, and keep in mind that it doesn't always have to be about the supplement. Sometimes it can be adding the pumpkin seeds right onto your salad, adding the pumpkin seeds into your smoothie, adding the spinach. So keep in mind that boosting these nutrients that we talk about and these vitamins and these minerals doesn't always have to be about a supplement. It can actually be about a smoothie, or it can be about, adding these things into your diet as you go. Great questions. Awesome. So since I'm here at my mom's house, I can't